every village, every city soaring tower. Empty people live in darkness, every minute, every hour. Hear the cry of desperation from a billion broken hearts. With a need so great, where do we even start? Let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distractions. Use my hands to set the captive free. Move my feet to follow after you. Lord, change the world and let it start with me. The orders, there's a place for everyone. I don't want to miss my mission in the plan that you've begun. You have promised to go with me to the edges of it all, and change everything that keeps me from your call. Let it start with me. Free my mind from all distractions. Use my hands to set the captive free. Move my feet to follow after you. Lord, change the world and let it start with me. Take my life, all that I have called my own. Everything I am is yours alone. Let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distractions. Use my hands to set the captive free. Move my feet to follow after you. Lord, change the world and let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distraction. Use my hands, set the captive free. Move my feet to follow after you. Lord, change the world and let it start with me. Let it start with me.
Let it start with me. I really like that song. I understand we see it a lot. We're really familiar with it, but it really is at the heart of missions, I think. You know, let it start with me. Well, Mom is doing well today. Thank you, Ryan, for letting us know that. Your mom is such a precious, precious soul. Thank you so much for letting us know that. All right, here we are. Miss Terry, I love you. I agree with you. You know, 2 times in one day, we are blessed. I am blessed. 2 times in one day, I get to come together with you guys and have fun. Mr. Rick, Miss Lena, good evening. I'm one of these guys that get my, I'm like a baby that get their days and nights mixed up. So, pardon me, it's light out. It's morning as far as my brain is going. I understand it's not. I do. But here we are. I love you all. I pray you've had a really, really good day. It's been a busy day and a really good one. And, I love the fact that God is in control of everything. I've been reading early and doing some research, and I got to tell you, reports and stories that have come out of October 6th in Israel, and it's horrendous. It just One of the young ladies who was held prisoner and raped repeatedly was spoke. I didn't get to hear that, but apparently spoke at the White House. I hope people listen. I don't know that they did, because I think lines are divided. I think they're drawn, and people, for whatever purposes or reasons, they jumped on one side or another. But it breaks my heart. It really does. Good morning, or evening, Miss Betsy. I'll get it right. And there are the Jensen Bucket Janice. Yay! Nice to be with you too, kiddo. It is to be a real tragedy. That we understand and can see and have the evidence presented before. It's all there. And we still blame Israel. Now, understand, it's a minority, I believe, across our country. But isn't it interesting that it's this vocal minority that gets all the press, makes all the headlines? It's sad. Keep praying for Israel. Keep praying for peace in that area. Keep praying for victory so that this will end. And this is one radical group like ISIS that can be shut down and not be a plague upon the world again. So pray. Pray that God's hand will sustain them. Don't get me wrong. I have never said that what they're doing and all of the decisions they make are right. That is not my call to make, quite honestly. It is not. I often wonder what it would be like if something like that happened here. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yeah. We fought a 20-year war when something like that, similar, different but similar, happened here. Didn't we? Well, at any rate, I shared with everybody the other day, on Monday, in the morning study. Pastor Luciani, hello, my friend. It is good to see you here from the Philippines, and my sweet Sherry is here as well. My dear friend, that many of you have heard me talk about, and the people that sign in during the day, they've heard this. But my friend Howard Levitt, for nearly 57 years, it's the oldest friend Sherry and I have had together. He went home to be with the Lord on last Friday. Apparently he had talked to his son the other day. He had gone to the store. He had come to his apartment, and he was walked up the stairs, and apparently he had a massive COPD attack, and he collapsed. And he'd been down about 15 minutes before he was discovered, and they got help and got him to the hospital. So he'd been down a significant length of time. They kept him on life support, but finally they shut everything off, and he slipped. He slipped away. But his lungs, they said, just stopped working, just shut down and stopped working, and then his heart stopped. But I have the joy of knowing that my precious Jewish friend had accepted Jesus as Messiah. And Sherry and I will see him again and spend time with him again in eternity. So thank you all for your love, your prayers, and your well wishes. I appreciate that very much. And I wanted to share that with the Wednesday night group, because not everybody listens, at the dailies, but there's some on Wednesday night just come in on Wednesday night. So, at any rate, here we are. It's good to be here. We are looking at biblical covenants. We got to Ezekiel 36. We got to that point where we're just about to talk about the new covenant. And so we went back and began to look at the covenant relationship with God and his people. And, what we glean and draw from all of this is an understanding that our God is a covenant-keeping God. We may not be. We may have difficulty in keeping all the covenants, but God does not. And another thing we have discovered is that every covenant God makes in the Bible will bring us ultimately a full circle around to the covenant of grace. So we began looking at the very first covenant, the Abrahamic Covenant. Adam, you do this and you'll have everlasting life. If you do this, you're going to die. And that was the Abrahamic Covenant. And Adam did, and Adam and Eve died, right? But then we see the covenant of grace coming in as God provided them a way of atonement for their sin. And that thread runs from there all the way through all 66 books of the Bible. The next covenant we looked at was the Noahic covenant, where God, promised to never destroy the earth again with a flood, and set a rainbow in the sky as a sign of that covenant. And last week we just opened the door and started on the Abrahamic Covenant. We find the Abrahamic Covenant in Genesis 12 and 15. It's repeated about 3 times. But let's look at 15, verses 1 through 7. After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, "Do not fear, Abram, I am a shield to you. Your reward will be great." And Abram said, "Oh, Lord God, what will you give me, since I am childless, and the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus?" And Abram said, "Since you have given no offspring to me, one born of my house is my heir." Then behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "This man will not be your heir, but one will come forth from your own body, and he shall be your heir." And he took him outside and said, "Look toward the heavens, count the stars, if you're able to count them." And he said to him, He said to him, "So shall your descendants be." And he believed the Lord. And it was accounted to him as righteousness. And he said to him, "I am the Lord, who brought you out of Ur of Chaldees to give you this land to possess it." Now we're going to see how this covenant is established and the guarantee that is given, because it is an everlasting covenant. And this is something that you and I need to understand, that this is an everlasting covenant. I know the replacement theology tells us that Israel is cooked, it's done, it's over with, they don't exist anymore, God is done with them, he's wiped them out, they have no place in God's economy, and the church is the new Israel. I'm sorry, I call that, there's a great theological term, it's called baloney, okay? And that's what it is. It's baloney. It is an everlasting covenant. We're going to look at that and why it is. But before we do, we are going to have our mission video this evening. There we go. I'll get that out of the way. And I'm just going to pose the question, what do missionaries do? Well, let's take a look.
Have you ever wondered what exactly a missionary does? Maybe you're picturing someone in remote places, like jungles or villages. It's true, some IMB missionaries serve in remote locations, but you can find spiritual lostness anywhere. Because lostness is found everywhere, IMB missionaries serve everywhere. In modern cities, classrooms, hospitals, gyms, cafes, and virtual reality. Everywhere people gather is an opportunity to share the good news of God's love. In Africa, doctors cure physical ailments and disease, but also share Jesus with all they serve. Even in bustling locations like Japan, teaching English can lead to gospel conversations. In Europe, there are missionary coaches who lead a team, yet also lead through evangelism and discipleship. Beyond the cities to the most remote places, missionary explorers are trained to search for and find the lost who have never heard the gospel. There's not just one type of missionary, nor is the gospel confined to one location. Each missionary brings their unique passions, experiences, and skills to the mission field to reach the unreached in creative ways. God has uniquely created you with your own passions, experiences, and skills. How will you use them faithfully? You can be a missionary and reach the lost with the gospel. That's what a missionary does.
That's pretty simple and straightforward, and I know it's something that we probably all understood, but we do. We have a tendency oftentimes to think of missionaries in those remote and faraway places, because that's what, when I was a kid, when the missionaries would come, that's what they would bring the slides and the movies and everything of all these obscure, faraway places and all these villages and stuff. But the truth of the matter is, he's right. Missionaries are everywhere there are people. And there is no one, absolutely no one, that cannot give themselves either to a short-term mission or even a longer-term mission. Because you all have skills, everybody, every one of you have skills, you have talents, you have abilities that God can use someplace on the mission field. And that's exciting. Pastor Bill Thrasher is sending you messages. Are you getting them? I have not thus far, Miss Janice. Is he emailing or is he messaging me? Do you know? Let me see what I can find. All right. If Bill's trying to get me at this time, that may be a reason for it. Let me get my cheaters on here. Let's see. I have not. Do you know if he sent it via email? I don't. Okay. Well, I wished I knew what it was. Will you all allow me just a moment to see if I can ferret this out and see what's going on? It may be something of importance, because usually people don't try to get me during this period of time. So... not on that one. One more place to check, and then we'll go on, and then I'll call Bill later after we meet and find out what's going on. Okay. I apologize for this, but if Bill's trying to get me, there may be a reason for that that is very important. So, all right, Sherry's checking it out. It's not on my emails, on any of my emails, and it's not on Messenger. Well, it could be on Messenger, I guess. Okay. Nope. All right. Here we go. All right. Sorry about the delay, but that's if it's something important, and Sherry can call maybe Bill, and we can find out what's going on. All right. So, you all ready? Let's pray. Father, I want to thank you so much for bringing us together tonight. Lord, this is kind of a fluid thing, and we know that it is, because we're trying to Be sensitive to everybody that are part of us and they're out there. We're trying to stay connected. We're trying to bring current information to everybody. So, Lord, I just pray that you will, if there's something that we need to hear from Bill tonight, that Lord will be able to figure out what that is and get in touch. God, and if something urgent in prayer, that we can take it to you in prayer. So we lift him up, and I will Sherry up as she tries to discover what's going on. I thank you for these that are out here this evening, and we give you praise for them, Lord. Pray, Lord, that you will draw us into understanding. Fill us, Lord, with excitement over what you do within our life and how you can use us. I do thank you, Lord, for the missionaries that we look at week by week and the incredible job and role that they have. Pray, Lord, that you will bless, pour your Spirit upon them, provide for their every need. I thank you, Lord, for Pastor Luciano and Pastor Sadich. Dear friends, Lord, I thank you that they are part. I pray, Lord, for your blessing and pouring of your Spirit out upon their ministries. Now, God, I just ask you to speak to us, to lead us, to bring us into to understanding of what your will is, Lord. And we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Well, after that exchange that we read about between Abram and God, Abram asked for a sign, and God leads him through, I believe, through all my resources and study, this is probably the most mysterious ceremony of the ancient world. It is called, the cutting of the covenant. All right. Now, I know some of you might remember we talked about this when we were all the way back in Hebrews, but I want to bring it fresh, out for us, because there's so much for us to learn from that that really helps us to understand the eternal nature of this Abrahamic covenant. Take a look at Genesis 15. Flip your Bible over to there, and verses 9 through 10. Did you get, while they're turning, did you get, Sherry?
I am sending you the message now. I told you I would let you know.
Okay. All right. So, here we go. Let me put that back up there, and we will go there. There we go. It says, so, he said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer and a 3-year-old female goat and a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a pigeon. And he brought all these to him and cut them in two and laid each half opposite each other, but he did not cut the birds. I spoke to Bill. He said he has not reached out to me. Okay. Thank you. So you get the picture? An area is cleaned off. And he brings a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a pigeon. Now, he takes and he kills all the animals, and he cuts them in half. And he lays one half on one side and one half on the other, all the way down. All right? And during the day, Abram had to keep the birds of prey from defiling the sacrifice, which meant that he's running back and forth, because if you can imagine, in that arid climate, the carrion birds, the vultures and the various carrion birds, they're swooping down. You not only have that, but you have other things that are trying to crawl on it. So he's shooing everything away. He spends his whole day. What a tiresome job that would be. By the way, it wouldn't be exactly a pleasant job either. I don't know how many of you have ever had the incredible, wonderful privilege of being in a slaughterhouse. But there is nothing clean or pleasant about a slaughterhouse. It is ook from the head, down. Well, it's no different out there. All right. So Abraham is running through all of this stuff, keeping the birds away and keeping, the flies off as much as he can. Then at night, darkness falls. And Abram is caught in a deep, deep terror. And in that terror, God assures him concerning his promise and his protection. Then in verse 17, God concludes this covenant with Abraham in the most mysterious way. Look at verse 17. And it came about when the sun had set that it was very dark, and behold, there appeared a smoking oven, a flaming torch, and passed between these pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your descendants, I have given this land. Now, you've got the background. So let me walk with you through the mystery, if you will, of this ceremony. And I think in doing so, you'll discover the mystery behind God's promise and his oath that he made to Abram. It really forms for us the assurance that we have, the anatomy of hope that you and I have. There is this incredible picture first in here. The first thing I want you to see is the introduction of a self-existent God who is willing to supply every need for time and eternity. Verse 1 of 15 says, after these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, saying, do not fear, Abram, I am a shield to you, and your reward will be great. God's word to man is always of supreme importance. There is nothing else comparable in all of creation. Jesus, of course, is the full expression of all that God is and all that God says. He is the sum of all that can be communicated to us. He is the language spoken by God in which he communicates his new covenant with man. Now, prior to the incarnation of Jesus, the Word often appeared to man in what is called a pre-incarnate appearance of Christ, a theophanies. There's a Hebrew word, in here that is used for God. It is Debar Yahweh. Now, this is the first time it appears in the Bible. It is not referred to as the words of men, but the word of the Lord. The word of the Lord, the Debar Yahweh, came to Abraham in a vision. All right? Who's the word? Do you all know? Yeah. In the beginning was the Word. Word was with God. The Word was God. And this is the first time that we find a mention of the Word of God in this context. In the Bible, it refers not to the words of men, but the words of the Lord, manifesting a marvelous calm and promise to Abraham. Debar Yahweh is one of the few prominent Hebrew names or titles in the Bible for God. Now, it's not often lifted up. You can go to a lot of books that has the names of God. You might not find this, but it is the name of God. This verb means to formalize, to deliberately establish and pronounce something, causing the thing spoken to become real in the mind and the consciousness of whoever understands this word. Not only does this remarkable verse contain the first mention of the word, but it also introduces for the first time in Scripture the word vision and shield and reward. Even more significantly, this is the first of the great I ams of Scripture. Listen to this verse again. After all these things, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. He said, "Do not fear. I am a shield to you." Now that I am carries to the whole thought. I am your reward. It shall be great. You see it? I think Jesus was relating this incident when he was talking to the Jews in John 8. I think this is what he's heralding back to. I mean, this was a big moment, in the life of the Jew, even in Jesus' day, to understand the covenant God made with their father Abraham. In verses 56 and 58 of John chapter 8, he says, "Your father Abraham rejoiced to see me, to see my day. And he saw it and he was glad." So the Jews said to him, "You're not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham?" Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was born, I am." Now, you got to understand, they recognize this claim as a claim that he is making of himself, that he is himself God. And immediately they wanted to take up stones and stone him. But in truth, Abraham had seen him on this very first occasion when he first identified himself to Abram as the self-existing God, the one who is able and willing to supply every need in time and eternity. The word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. Think of this. How do words normally come to us? On a written page. So we've got to be thinking something differently than a floating written page. We have to understand it for what it is. It's speaking of his self-revelation of himself to Abraham. Verse 6 gives us three more first, if you will. Take a look at it. That he believed in the Lord, and he reckoned to him as righteousness. This is the first time in Scripture the word believe, and the word reckon, and the word righteousness are mentioned. So we have something really significant going on here. Now here's the principle of true salvation, set forth for the first item in the Bible. Not by works do men attain or manifest righteousness, but by what? Well, by faith. Because they believe the Word of God. Abraham simply becomes a type of all who would ever be saved. When man believes what God says, God credits them with perfect righteousness, therefore enables sinful man to be made fit for fellowship with a holy God. Now, one more first that I want you to see before we amplify, everything at this pivotal point. It's the first time we see the promises of God sealed with an irrevocable oath. verses 17 and into 18. It came about when the sun set. It was a very dark. It was very dark, and behold, there appeared a smoking oven and a flaming torch. Some translations say smoking pot. All right, and a flaming torch, which passed between these pieces. On that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, "To your descendants, I have given this land." Now we get to play with it. Now we get to amplify this mystery. Journey back with me a little bit in time and watch this amazing encounter between Abraham and Almighty God unfold. This ceremony describes one that was commonly used in the ancient world. Animals were cut in half, and the halves were placed opposite each other. Usually the contracting parties would each bring something to the table. And those animals would be split and divided up one side to the other. The contracting parties of the covenant, then both of them would pass between the pieces. Both. That was making an irrevocable vow. They were vowing to keep their word to each other and calling upon themselves the fate of these dead animals if they were to break their word. In other words, they were saying, let me be torn in two like these dead animals if I do not keep my word. That's what the two people making this covenant said. It's very solemn. Couldn't be broke. If it was broke, then they would forfeit their life. You get the picture? Yeah, you and I go down and we go down to the auto dealership and we sign a contract. Most that happens, if I don't make my payment, they yank the car out from under me, right? Ding my credit report. This is a little more serious than that. Yeah, it is. It's a big well. That's why these things are incredibly serious and why we look at them. If this was between Abraham and he bought a piece of land and made promises to the person that he bought it from, and they made this covenant together, this contract, that individual would bring, animals, and likewise, Abram would be the same thing. They would cut them in half and they would split them on either side. Then both men together would walk in the midst of the ook, if you will. And the covenant would be sealed. Some of that blood would be put on the parchment or whatever as a testimony that the cutting ceremony had taken place, and thus if either one of those two parties were to renege, that guy comes back and says, I'm going to take my land back, he could forfeit his life because he broke the covenant. You understand? But here's the twist. Abraham was not required to pass between the animal halves. Instead, in his vision, Abram saw a smoking oven or smoking pot and a flaming torch pass between the pieces itself. That smoking pot, that smoking oven, that flaming torch represents God. Fast forward. Just fast forward the reel a little bit, push fast forward in nearly 500 years and think pillar of cloud and pillar of fire. In this covenant, Only God passes between the two halves of animals, not Abraham. You know what that says? God is saying something to Abraham that I think, if it were me, if it were you, would probably put us on our face. God is saying to Abraham, and by implication to all of God's people, this covenant does not depend on your obedience, but on mine. I swear by my own life and by my name that this promise will come to pass. Now that's a big wow, Terry. And is it further to confirm that our righteousness did not depend on our obedience to God's law? God credited Abraham with righteousness well before he gives Moses the 10 Commandments, right? So God alone goes through the covenant-making procedure. Abraham plays no role in keeping the covenant and its promise. God alone makes the promise. God alone secures the covenant by promise and by oath. God takes upon himself the task of fulfilling the duties and obligations of both sides. God alone is the one who guarantees the covenant promises will be kept. One last word before we close. I want you to think of what this means. It means that the Abrahamic Covenant is from beginning and end one of grace. God makes the promise. God gives the guarantee. God will put himself under the curse, so to speak, if he does not keep the promise, the covenant. I'll stop here, but I'll leave you just a tidbit to think about. Does that mean that when God said, I'm going to give you this land to your children, to your children's children, to your heirs, that it'll happen? Is that what it means? Does God then intend to redeem them in the day of their trouble? You see it? Father, I thank you. I thank you for how unbelievably, how overwhelmingly you assure us that we are your children. I thank you, Lord, that we can see that you are a covenant-keeping, covenant-honoring God. And we rejoice. Even though so many times we have shown ourselves to be less than faithful, still you say, I have kept the promise in your stead. Later on, you seal it not with the blood of bulls and rams and goats, but with the blood of the Lamb slain before the foundation of the world. Thank you, Father. I pray, Lord, as we rest in tonight, that this thought, this truth, will become such reality to each of us. Thank you, Lord. In your blessed name, we pray. Amen. Thanks for being with me tonight. And may God bless you abundantly. And I'll be back here tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. We're going to pick up where we left off this morning and go in. By the way, we'll probably tap right into chapter 3 before the day's out. God bless you. I love you. You mean so much to us. May God take care of you, keep you safe and sound. We'll see you tomorrow morning. And then, of course, we're all going to be together on Sunday.